The secret that changed everything. A family's search for their missing son leads them to a small town with dark secrets, where the neighbor's roses hide more than just thorns. What did they find buried in his garden? Now, armed with a chilling clue, the Carters chase Jacob's trail to Chicago's shadowy underbelly. A homeless man's whisper about a blue jacket sends them into the city's darkest corners. Who is this mysterious figure stealing children? And why does he always leave a train ticket behind? The truth will shock you. Watch until the end to uncover the final twist. Did they find Jacob, or is the nightmare far from over? Like, subscribe, and comment your theories below. The Greyhound bus wheezed to a stop beneath the flickering fluorescent lights of Chicago's Union Station, its brakes releasing a sigh of exhaustion that mirrored Lisa's own. Through the grimy window, the city stretched before them, a labyrinth of steel and concrete where somewhere maybe Jacob walked these same streets. David squeezed her hand as they stepped onto the platform, the letter from Walter Graham crumpled in his coat pocket. The paper had left indents in his palm from how tightly he'd clutched it during the 12-hour ride. Look near the trains in Chicago. Mia trailed behind them, her backpack heavy with every newspaper clipping, every photo, every desperate lead they'd chased for 5 years. The station's PA system crackled overhead, announcing departures to places Jacob might have passed through: St. Louis, Omaha, Denver. "Where do we start?" Lisa asked, her breath fogging in the chilly air. David's eyes scanned the bustling terminal. Wherever people don't ask questions. By dusk, they'd visited 7 platforms, showing Jacob's photo to ticket clerks, janitors, a pretzel vendor whose smile faded when he saw the picture. "No kids like that," the vendor muttered, wiping salt from his fingers. "But try the Red Line Homeless Outreach. They see everybody." The outreach center was tucked beneath the L tracks, its windows glowing orange against the gathering dark. A man in a tattered Bears jersey huddled near the door, his fingers wrapped around a steaming cup. Lisa approached slowly, Jacob's photo extended. "Have you—" The man's bloodshot eyes locked onto the picture before she finished speaking. "Blue jacket," he rasped. David stiffened. "What?" "Tall dude, blue jacket with railroad patches." The man tapped the photo with a grimy fingernail. Seen him with kids before. Not this one, but others. He took a shuddering sip from his cup. "Takes the ones who don't got nobody looking." Lisa's stomach turned to lead. Mia, who'd been silent all day, spoke up. "Where?" The man jerked his chin towards the southbound tracks. "Freight yards. Comes around when it gets cold." His gaze drifted to the deepening twilight. Like tonight. A train whistle sounded in the distance, long and lonesome. David was already moving, his phone out to call the detective handling Walter's case. Lisa clutched Mia's hand, both of them staring at the photo in her other palm. Jacob at 6, grinning in his favorite red sneakers. Somewhere in this concrete jungle, that smile still existed. They just had to follow the tracks to find it. The chain-link fence rattled as Mia squeezed through the gap, the metal cold against her palms. The abandoned rail yard stretched before her, a graveyard of rusted boxcars and twisted tracks, bathed in the sickly orange glow of distant streetlights. Somewhere in the maze of steel, a loose piece of sheet metal clanged in the wind like a funeral bell. She shouldn't be here. Her parents thought she was asleep at the motel, exhausted from their first day searching Chicago's train stations. But the homeless man's words had burrowed under her skin. Kids who don't got nobody looking. Jacob had someone looking. Her. Mia picked her way through the debris, her sneakers crunching over broken glass. The air smelled of oil and wet cardboard. She pulled out her phone, the flashlight beam cutting through the dark. A shadow moved. Her breath hitched. 20 yards ahead, a figure stood silhouetted in the open door of a boxcar. Small, hunched. A kid. Jacob, her voice barely carried over the wind. The figure didn't move, didn't speak. Mia took a step closer. The beam caught a flash of red hair before the boy darted back into the shadows of the car. Wait! She broke into a run, gravel skidding underfoot. Sirens wailed in the distance. By the time she reached the boxcar, panting, the space inside was empty. Just a crumpled fast food bag and the faint, sour smell of unwashed clothes. But on the grimy floor, clear as a fingerprint in the dust, was a small, fresh sneaker print. And beside it, a single piece of red chalk, Jacob's favorite color. Headlights swept across the yard as a police cruiser rolled up to the fence. Mia barely had time to pocket the chalk before an officer's voice boomed, "Hey, you can't be here." When she glanced back at the boxcar, the wind howled through its open door like a whisper. "Find me." The Hope Street Youth Shelter smelled of bleach and burned coffee. Lisa's fingers trembled as she smoothed Jacob's photo on the front desk. His second-grade picture, the one where his front teeth were missing and his freckles stood out like cinnamon sprinkles. The social worker, a woman with tired eyes and a name tag reading Marisol, studied it for a heartbeat too long. "I know this face," she murmured, her acrylic nails tapping the laminate. "Not recently, but maybe 3 winters ago?" David's grip tightened on Mia's shoulder. Marisol flipped through a battered ledger, its pages stained with coffee rings. "Here, December 12th. A man in a blue parka brought in a kid with hair like this, dirty, matted, but that same copper red." She glanced up. "Called him Jake." Lisa's knees nearly gave out. Mia felt the world tilt sideways. Jake, the nickname only family used. Marisol's voice dropped as 2 teens shuffled past to the cafeteria. "The man said he found him sleeping under a bridge, signed him in as a Good Samaritan, but—" She rubbed her temple. Jake wouldn't stop shaking, and when I asked his last name, the man cut in, said the kid was traumatized, couldn't remember. Mia's stomach churned. The blue jacket. "What happened to him?" David's voice was sandpaper rough. Marisol sighed. "He bolted that night, kept whispering about trains, said he had to meet his brother." She hesitated. "Before he ran, he left this." From a drawer, she pulled a child's drawing on wrinkled notebook paper. Stick figures by a boxcar. A tall one in blue, a small one with red scribbled hair, and between them, even smaller, a stick dog with triangle ears. Mia gasped. "That's Scout, our beagle." Lisa traced the shaky crayon lines. Jacob had drawn their dead dog. He remembered. David was already heading for the door, phone pressed to his ear. "We need every security cam within 10 blocks of this shelter from that night." Outside, the wind howled down the alleyway, carrying the distant wail of a train whistle. Somewhere out there, Jacob had run toward the tracks, and the man in blue had let him. Why? The grate came up with a metallic scream, revealing a concrete staircase that disappeared into pitch blackness. The stench of urine and damp concrete rose like a living thing, making Mia gag as she followed her parents downward, their flashlight beams cutting through the gloom. "Stay close," David muttered, his hand hovering near Mia's elbow. The words vibrated with the same tension as the subway trains rumbling somewhere beneath their feet. The tunnels branched like veins beneath the city, lit sporadically by stolen extension cords powering bare bulbs. Makeshift tents lined the walls, their occupants watching the family with wary eyes. A woman wrapped in a sleeping bag turned away as Lisa held out Jacob's photo. Then they saw it, a mural spray-painted on the tunnel wall. A stick figure man in a conductor's hat, his arms outstretched toward a line of faceless children. Beneath it, fresh red letters. "He rides the midnight train." Hey. Mia spun to find a lanky teen boy leaning against a support beam, his hoodie sleeves frayed, one eye swollen shut. He studied them with the hollow look of someone who'd stopped expecting good news long ago. You looking for someone? He asked, nodding at the photo. Lisa stepped forward. Our son, he... Wouldn't be the first kid the conductor collected, the boy interrupted, scratching at a scar on his wrist. Comes around every winter when it gets cold, says he's got beds, food. His good eye flicked to Mia. Warm showers. David's jaw tightened. Where does he take them? The boy shrugged. West, mostly, says he's got a ranch. He lowered his voice. But sometimes they come back, different, quiet, like something got emptied out of him. A train whistle echoed through the tunnels, distant and mournful. The boy flinched, suddenly eager to leave. Check the 3 a.m. freight line, he muttered, already backing away. That's his favorite. As he disappeared into the shadows, Mia's flashlight caught something on the ground. A child's mitten, crusted with dirt, its yarn the exact shade of Jacob's old-school colors, red and blue. The shelter's art room smelled of dried tempera paint and broken crayons. Mia ran her fingers along the uneven stacks of construction paper, each drawing a silent scream for attention. The worker, a young man named Derek with a lip ring and tired smile, had said kids left their art behind all the time. Sometimes it's all they have to leave, he'd explained. Her fingers caught on a folded sheet tucked beneath a box of markers. The paper was grimy at the edges, as if handled often. When she opened it, her breath caught. A boy with fiery red hair, not the stick figures of Jacob's childhood drawings, but a detailed sketch. The artist had captured the exact way Jacob's bangs always fell into his eyes, the constellation of freckles on his nose. At the bottom, scrawled in shaky block letters, "My brother Jake." Derek froze when he saw it, his coffee cup halfway to his lips. Where did you find that? Mia's pulse pounded in her ears. Who drew this? That's Sam. Derek set his cup down carefully as if it might shatter. Quiet kid, showed up last January, wouldn't talk to anyone except the art therapist. He pointed to the corner of the drawing. A tiny train winding through the boy's hair. Always drew those. Said he was looking for his brother. Lisa's hand flew to her mouth. David's voice was barely audible. When did he leave? Derek's Adam's apple bobbed. Didn't. One morning he was just gone. Left that behind. He hesitated, then opened a cabinet. But he made something else. Inside lay a popsicle stick train car, painstakingly painted blue. Taped inside was a photo booth strip. 2 grinning boys with their cheeks pressed together. One had Sam's dark curls. The other was Jacob. Not the round-faced second grader from their missing posters, but a gaunt teenager with shadows under his eyes. Alive. Smiling. Calling someone brother. The bell above the pawnshop door jingled with unsettling cheer as Lisa stepped inside, the scent of old brass and lemon polish assaulting her senses. Glass display cases glittered under fluorescent lights. Rows of watches, class rings, and other discarded treasures whispering stories of better days. Her fingers trembled as she unfolded Jacob's photo for the 50th time that day, approaching the counter where a balding man with tattooed knuckles polished a silver pocket watch. "Help ya?" he grunted without looking up. Lisa opened her mouth, but before she could speak, a glint of gold in the jewelry case stole her breath. There, nestled between a tarnished brooch and a pair of cufflinks, lay a heart-shaped locket. Its delicate chain snapped, one hinge bent. Just like Jacob's. The one he'd worn every day since his 6th birthday. The one she'd given him, engraved with his initials, J.A.C. Her knees nearly buckled. She pressed a hand against the glass, her reflection distorting in the smudged surface. Where did you get this? The pawnbroker, Gary, according to his name tag, leaned forward, squinting at the locket before recognition flickered in his eyes. Ah, that. He plucked it from the case with thick fingers, the broken chain dangling like a hanged man. Came in 'bout 2 years back. Fella in a blue windbreaker. Nervous type. Always pawning kids' stuff. Lisa's stomach twisted. Kids' stuff? Gary shrugged, turning the locket over to reveal the engraving, still visible, though scratched as if someone had tried to erase it. Yeah, you know, toys, jackets, little jewelry pieces. Said he ran a lost and found for some shelter. His eyes narrowed. Why? This yours? David stepped forward, his voice dangerously calm. Did he ever bring in a boy with him? Red hair, about this tall? He held a hand to his shoulder, the height Jacob might be now. Gary scratched his stubble, thinking. Nah, always alone. But... He rummaged under the counter and slapped a ledger onto the glass. Kept a log for insurance, here, December 14th, 2 years ago. Gold locket, initials JAC, $50. He tapped another entry. Same guy, last winter. Silver ID bracelet, engraved SM. Lisa's pulse roared in her ears. SM. Sam. David was already on his phone, snapping photos of the ledger. You remember anything else about this guy? A name? Car? Gary chuckled darkly. Lady, in this business you learn not to ask. He hesitated, then added, but he always paid in cash, and once, when it was rainin', I saw him get into an old white van. Had one of them magnetic signs on the side, peeled half off, but I could read part of it. Lisa gripped the counter. What did it say? Gary's eyes flicked to Mia, who stood frozen by the door before he lowered his voice. Sunshine Ranch. Outside, a train whistle blew in the distance, long and lonesome, like a child calling home. The rail yard security office smelled like stale coffee and industrial cleaner. David's fingers left damp prints on the laminated counter as he leaned forward, watching the grainy black and white footage for the 4th time. The timestamp read 03:17 a.m., December 18th, 3 weeks after Sam had disappeared from the shelter. Right there, the night guard mumbled around a mouthful of donut, jabbing a greasy finger at the screen. See him? Kid's a ghost. The camera zoom jerked erratically, struggling to focus in the pre-dawn darkness. A figure darted between boxcars, slight, hooded, moving with the practiced ease of someone who knew every bolt and coupling. For half a second, the infrared caught his profile as he turned. The sharp angle of a teenage jaw, the faintest speckling across the bridge of his nose. Freckles. Jacob's freckles. Lisa made a sound like a wounded animal, her nails digging into David's arm. Mia pressed closer to the monitor, her breath fogging the screen. That's him, she whispered. That's how he stands, like his left knee hurts. The guard snorted. You got sharp eyes, kid. That one's been hopping trains for years. Always alone except... He fast-forwarded, then paused. Another figure emerged from the shadows, taller, broader, his face obscured by a conductor's cap. The man in blue. He's not alone today, the guard muttered. On screen, the two figures met near a rusted tanker car. The taller man handed over a paper bag. The boy hesitated, then reached inside. Whatever he pulled out made him stagger back, but the man grabbed his wrist, leaning close to whisper something that made the boy go still. David's stomach turned to lead. Where was this train headed? The guard checked his logbook. Denver, then Salt Lake, but he flipped a page. This one here, same kid caught on cam 2 days later. He pulled up another file. The footage showed the boy alone now, curled in an empty boxcar, sketching in a notebook by flashlight. As the camera struggled to focus, the beam caught the page. A detailed drawing of two boys sitting side by side on train tracks. One with red hair, one with dark curls. Jake, Plums. Sam was scrawled in the corner. Lisa made a choked sound. He's looking for Sam. Outside, a real train whistle blew. The westbound 315 to Denver, rolling out on schedule. David was already moving, his phone pressed to his ear as he dialed the detective. We need every security cam between here and Colorado, he barked, and someone find out who owns a goddamn Sunshine Ranch white van. The guard shook his head as the family rushed out into the cold. Crazy world, he muttered to the empty office, rewinding the footage. On the screen, the boy looked up suddenly, straight into the camera, as if sensing he was being watched. For one frozen frame, his eyes burned with recognition. Then the train plunged into darkness. The wind howled through the train station's open archways, sending Mia's carefully hung flyers fluttering against the brick walls like captive birds. She adjusted her scarf against the December chill, the photo of Jacob staring back at her from every poster, his missing child face now accompanied by the security footage still of the teenage train hopper. "A reward," the bold letters screamed. "Jacob Carter, last seen near freight yards." Mia knew her parents would kill her if they found out she'd come alone. But after seeing that footage, after watching her brother's gaunt face flicker on that grainy screen, she couldn't sit in another motel room staring at maps. She pinned the last flyer near the 3 a.m. platform, the pushpin biting into her numb fingers. The station was nearly empty at this hour, just a few graveyard shift workers and a homeless man dozing on a bench. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting long shadows that seemed to twitch when she wasn't looking directly at them. A floorboard creaked behind her. "You shouldn't be out here alone." The voice was gravelly, the kind that came from too many cigarettes or too many nights shouting over train engines. Mia's breath hitched. She turned slowly, her pulse pounding in her ears. The man stood 6 feet away, hands buried in the pockets of a faded blue jacket. Not the crisp parka from the shelter's description, but worn denim with grease stains on the cuffs. His conductor's cap shadowed his face, but she could make out salt and pepper stubble and a thin scar running from lip to chin. "I'm not alone," Mia lied, her voice steadier than she felt. "My dad's getting coffee." The man, the conductor, smiled. Not the predatory grin she'd expected, but something weary. Almost sad. "Sure he is." He nodded at the flyers. "That your brother?" Mia's fingers found the pepper spray in her pocket. "You've seen him?" "Maybe." He took a step closer, the overhead light catching the silver ring on his right hand. A railroad insignia. "Kids like Jake. They don't always want to be found." Jake, not Jacob, the nickname only family used. The homeless man on the bench coughed, startling them both. When Mia glanced back, the conductor had moved nearer, close enough that she caught the scent of diesel and spearmint gum. "He asked me to give you something." The man reached into his jacket. Mia stumbled back, her heel catching on the platform edge. Strong hands grabbed her shoulders. "Whoa there!" She whirled to see a security guard steadying her, his brow furrowed. When she looked back, the blue jacket was already disappearing down the stairs to track 9. On the bench where he'd stood lay a child's train ticket. Chicago to Denver, dated last winter, and scribbled in the margin in familiar handwriting. "Tell Mia to check the silo." The scent of pretzels and diesel fuel filled the cavernous train station as Mia wove through the morning crowd, her heart hammering against her ribs. She clutched the ticket stub in her sweaty palm. Chicago to Milwaukee, December 21st, the date circled in smudged pencil like some macabre advent calendar. She'd lied to her parents, told them she was going to the hotel lobby for hot chocolate. Instead, she'd come back to the station, the conductor's words burning in her brain. "He asked me to give you something." Now she stood frozen near track 7, watching as the man in the blue jacket moved through the crowd with the practiced ease of someone who knew every schedule, every blind spot. He wasn't looking at the departure boards, wasn't carrying luggage, just waiting. A toddler's squeal made Mia jump. The conductor's head snapped toward the sound and locked onto her. Their eyes met. For a heartbeat, neither moved. Then his mouth formed 2 silent words. "Run, Mia." She bolted. Her sneakers slapped against the marble floor as she ducked under a luggage cart, nearly colliding with a group of nuns. Shouts erupted behind her. The station's PA system blared something about delayed departures, the echo making it impossible to tell if the footsteps gaining on her were real or imagined. "Hey, watch it." A businessman scowled as Mia dodged around him, her elbow knocking his coffee cup. The scalding liquid splashed across her wrist, but she barely felt it. She risked a glance back. The conductor was gone. Mia skidded to a stop near the newsstand, her chest heaving. The crowd flowed around her like water around a stone, oblivious, unconcerned. Had she imagined the whole thing? Then she saw it. A scrap of paper fluttered to the ground near the ticket counter, carried by the station's artificial wind. Mia lunged for it, her fingers closing around another ticket stub. This one fresh. Milwaukee. Today, 12:21 p.m., the same looping handwriting in the margin. Bring the drawing. Mia's blood turned to ice. He knew about Sam's sketch, which meant the station's clock struck noon, its chime drowning out her gasp. Somewhere in the crowd, a train whistle blew, and Mia realized with terrifying certainty that the conductor wasn't chasing her. He was leading her. The Milwaukee shelter smelled like disinfectant and burnt toast. Mia's fingers trembled as she unfolded Sam's drawing, the one of him and Jacob with their cheeks pressed together, and laid it on the social worker's desk. "We think he might be here," David said, his voice rough from too many sleepless nights. "His name is Sam. A coffee cup clattered to the floor behind them. Mia turned to see a lanky boy frozen in the doorway, his dark curls matted, one arm wrapped protectively around his ribs. His eyes, wide and bloodshot, locked onto the drawing. For 3 heartbeats, no one moved. Then the boy whispered a single word that shattered the room. "Jake." Sam's knees gave out. David caught him before he hit the linoleum, easing him into a chair as the boy trembled like a spooked animal. Up close, Mia could see the scars. A burn on his wrist shaped like a railroad spike, a half-healed cut along his jaw. Lisa knelt beside him, her voice barely audible. "You know, our son." Sam's fingers brushed the drawing. He said you'd come." His voice cracked. "After the first winter, when we got split up at the Denver yards, he made me memorize your phone number. Said if anything happened, I should call." His shoulders hunched. "I lost the paper." Mia's stomach twisted. "Where is he now?" Sam's gaze darted to the social worker, then to the window where snow had started falling. "The conductor took him last month. Said Jake was special." He rubbed his scarred wrist absently. "They went further west, some ranch." David's jaw tightened. "Sunshine Ranch?" Sam flinched at the name. "You know about it?" "Only that it's where the conductor takes kids," Lisa said gently. "What happens there?" The boy's breathing turned shallow. "At first it's okay. Food, beds. Then—" His fingers plucked at his threadbare sleeves. "He starts making you work. Says you owe him. Jake figured it out first, that he was selling us to farms, factories. That's when he—" Sam reached into his pocket and pulled out a folded photograph, creased and water-stained but unmistakable. Jacob, maybe 14, grinning beside a rusted tractor, on the back, scrawled in pencil, "When you're ready, follow the tracks to Silverton. I left a map in our spot." David turned the photo over. "Where's Silverton?" "Colorado Mountains," Sam whispered. "But you can't go in winter. The passes are—" Lisa grabbed Sam's hands. "Did he hurt you? Our son?" The boy's eyes filled with tears. "Jake protected me, took the punishments meant for me." He touched his bruised ribs. "Last thing he said before they took him? Tell my sister to check the silo." Mia's breath caught. The same words from the train station. Outside, the wind howled through the power lines, sounding eerily like a distant train whistle. Somewhere beyond the snow-capped mountains, Jacob was waiting. And, for the first time in 5 years, Mia knew, truly knew, her brother was alive. The motel room phone shattered the silence like a gunshot. Lisa jerked upright in bed, her book tumbling to the carpet. David fumbled for the receiver, his voice thick with sleep. "Hello?" Mia watched from the doorway, her arms wrapped around herself against the Colorado chill seeping through the thin walls. The neon vacancy sign outside their window painted alternating red and blue streaks across her father's face as his expression shifted from confusion to something raw and fragile. "He what?" David's knuckles whitened around the phone. "Where?" Denver, you're sure it's him? Lisa was on her feet now, clutching David's shoulder, her other hand pressed to her mouth. Mia didn't realize she'd moved until she felt the rough bedspend under her fingertips, her knees having given out. David's voice dropped to a whisper. And Jacob? He said what? A train rumbled past somewhere in the distance, shaking the cheap-framed landscape on the wall. The detective's tinny voice buzzed through the receiver, but Mia could only hear the blood roaring in her ears. David hung up with mechanical precision. For 3 heartbeats, the room held its breath. They found him, he said finally. The conductor, Denver PD, picked him up trying to board a freight train with a 14-year-old boy. His throat worked. When they searched him, Lisa made a wounded sound. He had this. David pulled out his phone with trembling hands, pulling up the email the detective had just sent. The photo glowed in the dim room. A Polaroid of a teenage boy with auburn hair, his face gaunt but unmistakable, standing beside a rusted water tower. Scrawled in marker along the bottom. Jake, Silverton, 12 to 22-1. Mia's fingers hovered over the screen. He's alive. The words tasted strange, like a language she'd forgotten. David's arm wrapped around her shoulders, his grip almost painfully tight. The conductor claims Jacob ran from the ranch last month. Says he's still out there. His voice broke. Says our boy's been trying to find his way home. Outside, the wind howled through the mountain pass, carrying with it the faintest echo of a train whistle. Somewhere beyond these walls, beyond the snow-choked roads and frozen rivers, Jacob was breathing the same cold air. Lisa was already packing, her movements sharp with purpose. How far to Silverton? David checked his watch. 6 hours if the roads are clear. Mia stared at the photo until her eyes burned. The boy in the picture, her brother, her ghost, her unfinished story, was looking at something just beyond the frame, his expression caught between fear and fierce determination. For the first time in 5 years, they had a date, a location, a face, and somewhere in the Colorado wilderness, Jacob Carter was waiting. The tires spat gravel as David slammed the rental car to a stop outside the rusted gate. The sign hung crookedly from one chain, Sunshine Ranch, its cheerful yellow letters peeling away to reveal the weathered wood beneath. Beyond the fence, the Colorado mountains loomed like silent witnesses, their peaks dusted with early snow. Lisa's fingers trembled as she unbuckled her seatbelt. The air smelled of pine and something sharper, kerosene maybe, or the metallic tang of old machinery. "Stay close," David murmured, his hand hovering near the pepper spray in his pocket. Mia didn't answer. She was already out of the car, her boots crunching through the frost-stiffened grass as she moved toward the main house. The porch sagged under her weight, the wood groaning like an old man shifting in his sleep. Inside, the ranch house stood frozen in time, a dollhouse of normalcy with its gingham curtains and chipped coffee mugs still lining the open shelves. But the calendar on the wall hadn't been flipped in months, and the fridge, when Mia dared to open it, held nothing but a single carton of spoiled milk and 3 vials of insulin. "Over here!" Jacob's voice, hoarse from disuse, cut through the stillness. Mia whirled to see him standing in the barn doorway, his too thin frame silhouetted against the dark interior. The barn smelled of hay and sweat and something sweetly rotten. Dust motes swirled in the slanted sunlight as David pried open the loft hatch, the ladder creaking under his weight. And there, carved into the rough-hewn beams, were the letters J.C. Pius S.M., surrounded by dozens of others. Initials upon initials, a ledger of lost children stretching back years. Lisa's breath hitched. Oh, God. Jacob's fingers traced the freshest marks. "He made us do chores up here," he whispered. "Said it built character." His voice broke. Sam tried to protect the little ones. That's why. A floorboard creaked below them. The conductor stood in the barn doorway, his blue jacket smeared with fresh mud, a cattle prod dangling from one hand. "Family reunion?" he asked softly. and smiled. The first snowflakes stung Mia's cheeks like tiny needles as she stumbled through the gathering dark. The wind howled through the ranch's skeletal trees, tearing at her jacket as she followed the sound. A wet, rattling cough coming from the direction of the grain silos. Behind her, her parents' flashlight beams swung wildly through the blizzard, illuminating the conductor's boot prints disappearing into the whiteout. "David, we need to go," Lisa shouted over the gale, her arm hooked protectively around Jacob's waist. Their son swayed on his feet, his breath coming in shallow gasps. Whether from cold or exhaustion or something worse, Mia couldn't tell. But that cough came again, weak, desperate, human. Mia was running before she'd made the decision, her boots plunging through knee-deep drifts. The old silo loomed ahead, its corrugated metal sides shuddering under the storm's assault. Up close, she could hear it, not just coughing now, but a faint, rhythmic scratching from inside. Thump, scratch, thump, like a fist against metal. "Dad!" Mia's voice tore raw from her throat as David caught up, his face half obscured by swirling snow. Together they wrestled with the frozen latch, their numb fingers slipping on the rusted mechanism. With a shriek of protesting hinges, the door gave way. The smell hit first, urine, sweat, and the cloying sweetness of infection. Then the beam of David's flashlight revealed the horror within. A boy, curled in a nest of moldy hay, his dark curls matted with filth, his wrists raw from restraints long since chewed through. Sam's head lifted slowly, his pupils contracting in the sudden light. A crusted cut bisected his left eyebrow, fresh blood trickling down his temple as he squinted at them. "Jake?" he rasped, then his eyes rolled back and he collapsed into David's arms as the storm swallowed the ranch whole. The beam of David's flashlight trembled as it cut through the silo's suffocating darkness, illuminating a figure curled against the far wall. The boy flinched away from the light, raising hands that were more scarred tissue than skin, his oversized sweatshirt hanging from bony shoulders like a scarecrow's rags. For 3 heartbeats no one moved. Then, "Dad?" The voice was a stranger's, hoarse from disuse, deeper than it should be after 5 years. But the way it cracked on that single syllable, that was pure Jacob. David's knees hit the frozen ground with a crack he wouldn't feel until morning. His flashlight rolled away, casting jagged shadows up the silo walls as he reached for the boy who'd lived only in photographs for half a decade. Jacob's breath came in shallow gasps as David cupped his face, thumbs brushing over unfamiliar angles, the sharp cheekbones, the hollows under his eyes that spoke of too many missed meals. But when the boy blinked up at him, those eyes, green as summer leaves, crinkled at the corners just like Lisa's, were achingly familiar. Lisa's wail echoed off the metal walls as she crashed down beside them, her hands fluttering over Jacob's matted hair, his torn fingernails, the fresh burns circling his wrists. She made a sound, like a drowning woman coming up for air when he leaned into her touch. Mia stood frozen in the doorway, the blizzard howling at her back. The math didn't add up. The child she'd mourned was here, but not. This gaunt teenager with hollowed cheeks and a split lip was both her brother and a stranger. Then Jacob turned his head, peering past their parents with a quiet, "Mia?" And just like that, the years collapsed. She was across the silo in 3 strides, crushing him in a hug that made him gasp. Beneath the stench of sweat and hay, he still smelled like himself, like the peppermint gum he'd always stolen from her backpack. Somewhere beyond the storm, sirens wailed. The conductor was still out there. The police would have questions. The doctors would cluck over malnutrition and scars, both visible and not. But for now, in this frozen circle of light, the Carter family was whole again. Jacob's fingers tightened around Mia's sleeve as David helped him stand. "Sam!" he croaked, pointing toward the ranch house. "He's in the—" "We got him," Lisa whispered, pressing her forehead to her son's temple. "We got you both." Outside, the snow continued to fall, blanketing the horrors of Sunshine Ranch in forgiving white. The morning sun filtered through the oak leaves, dappling light across the freshly turned earth where Walter Graham's rose bushes once grew. Lisa knelt in the soft soil, her gardening gloves caked with damp earth as she gently settled a new sapling into place. A dogwood tree, its young branches trembling in the spring breeze. "Should bloom white next month," she murmured, more to herself than anyone. David's calloused hands steadied the trunk as he packed soil around its roots, his wedding band glinting where it peeked through the dirt. They worked in comfortable silence, the kind that only comes after storms have passed and left stillness in their wake. Mia stood at the edge of the garden, clutching two artifacts in her palms. One crisp and new, one weathered by time. The first, a recent photo of Jacob, his auburn hair grown long enough to tie back, laughing as he helped rebuild the porch swing at their new home, not on Elmwood Drive. Never again on Elmwood Drive. The second, a faded train ticket stub from Denver to Chicago, its edges softened from months of handling. A shadow fell across the grass as Jacob joined her, his movements still careful where the doctors had removed 3 ribs last winter. He smelled of fresh paint and antiseptic, halfway through art school now, halfway to healing. "You sure about this?" he asked, eyeing the small stone marker Mia had spent weeks saving for. "Samuel Michael," it read simply. "Beloved brother." Mia nodded, her throat tight. "He saved you. That makes him family." Together they approached the empty grave. No casket, just a memorial for the boy who'd protected Jacob in the darkness. Mia placed the ticket stub carefully atop the smooth granite, anchoring it with a river stone from the creek near Sunshine Ranch. "We brought him home too," she whispered. Somewhere beyond the garden fence, a train whistle blew, not the mournful cry of the freights they'd chased, but the bright two-tone call of a passenger express. Jacob's fingers found Mia's, squeezing gently as the wind carried the sound away. Lisa stood, brushing dirt from her knees. "Lunch," she called, peeling off her gloves. David grinned, slinging an arm around Jacob's shoulders. "Only if you made those sandwiches with the pickles on the side, I know." Lisa rolled her eyes, but her smile was brighter than it had been in years. Mia lingered as they walked toward the house, her fingers brushing the dogwood's leaves. A single red rose had survived Walter's removal, just one stubborn bloom clinging to life near the fence post. She didn't pluck it, didn't prune it, just let it be, its petals trembling in the breeze like a whisper, like a promise. Somewhere beyond the tracks, beyond the mountains, maybe Sam was watching the same sky. Maybe not. But here, in this garden of second chances, that was enough. Like, subscribe, and comment your theories below.